morning, and welcome back to the Living Uncompromised podcast. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good.
Are you ready to jump into lesson 8?
I am. This is another fun discussion of Samson's escapades today.
I think from here to the end, it's going to feel that way.
Yeah.
I feel like today is, well, for lack of a better word, there's just hard sections about it to truly wrap your mind around what's really going on, what's the Lord's will, what's Samson's own character flaws taking control here. And so it's really going to be good for us to dive in and just talk it out, because that's what I feel like is best here.
Yeah, I think so too. I think just digging in and taking it as it comes and trying to, like you said, filter out what's Samson and what's the Lord using Samson in spite of Samson, and how the Lord's will prevails even so.
Well, as we jump right in, I think looking at the first 3 verses alone, because I feel like that's kind of separate from the next section that we cover, but we jump right into those first 3 verses and you're kind of like, what? Like, it seems so random to have this little account of what he did. And I understand it explains some of his character and his flaws, and that obviously he still has enemies that are after him or that would like to see him killed. But I just think it's kind of a random piece, which it's not random because the Bible doesn't do that, but it feels that way, like just a little extra touch in the midst of Samson's story where you go, what? But from the lesson before, we end with, okay, he's a judge. And then we jump right into this and we see him back into his flesh. And so it's just an interesting account in 3 little verses.
Yeah, it is. It's just 3 verses. And I think you're right. I think it speaks to his character, but I think it also speaks to his ongoing battle with the Philistines. And so that we know that no matter how much time has passed, that is, that's his calling on his life, is to begin the deliverance of Israel. We keep coming back to that same verse where the Lord told his mom that. And so I think it's a reminder that he's still in battle with these Philistines, and there's still this animosity between them. And they are always trying to capture him, and he is continually disrupting or causing harm to them. And so I think it shows us both of those things. The Lord's will is prevailing, even in this character flaw or this behavior that we see in him. And so it shows us that the Lord is still carrying out this purpose, and there still is this enemy, as you said.
Well, I think as we just kind of do an overview of those 3 verses, I think you see the flesh side of Samson come out, and he gives in to his desires, and then he uses his God-given ability, his strength, to get him out of it. We don't see here that the Lord rushed on him. He just has this gift that the Lord's given him to use to start the deliverance, right, from the Philistines. So he has this gift that God's given him, but he's using it to get himself out of his own situations as well. Obviously, it delivers him out of a situation, but this was a situation he got himself into. It wasn't just to deliver Israel here.
Yeah, I think in this particular instance, it's this God-given strength that he has, and he's using it for his own personal gain here. This is another one of those instances. We don't see a big battle with the Philistines. We don't see anyone is killed or anything. There's no destruction really, except of the city gate. But it is, again, a reminder that the Lord has equipped him to go against the Philistines. He is using it for his own personal gain. But I think it also shows still his victory over the Philistines. They are unable to capture him in this moment, at least in this moment. And so, it still shows that he is still being used for this purpose, even though I'm with you. I feel like he's using, this is a personal gain situation and using it for his own benefit at this time, and not for what the Lord has called him to do.
So as we, kind of leave this little account and we jump into verse 4, Delilah enters the scene. And
can I say something really quick before we get to Delilah?
Yeah,
and
sure.
I should have mentioned this, but I thought it was interesting as we're talking about the Philistines and how, there's still this enemy. And verse 2 talks about they find out that he's there And so they surrounded the place where he was, and it says they lay in wait for him all night at the city gate. They made no move during the night. And so we know that he gets up in the middle of the night or at midnight, some versions say, and then he breaks the city gate and takes it with him. But I just thought the part where it says that they lay in wait for him all night was really just kind of an interesting piece, because this is his enemy, right? He's in enemy territory, and they are laying like low all night, just waiting for the opportunity to take him, right? To take him captive. And then obviously we know that they will want to enslave him or kill him because of all that he's done. And so I think it was just application for us as I was reading this, because it just made me think he was where he wasn't supposed to be, doing what he wasn't supposed to be doing. And he put himself in a situation where the enemy could surround him. They surrounded him, they surrounded where he was, and they waited for him. I just think that speaks to his poor judgment here, because he put himself in a situation where the enemy could get to him. And I just think the life application for us, right? When we are supposed to be doing what the Lord's called us to do, and we take these detours into places we shouldn't be, into things we shouldn't be in, then we put ourselves in a position for the enemy to get a foothold, so to speak. And we know that the Lord equipped Samson to get out of this. He's strengthened him, and he's able to use that, to get out, because he wasn't at this time, it wasn't yet to be their prisoner. And we know his poor choices will eventually lead to that as we finish out his story here. But I just thought that was an interesting piece. Like when we go places we're not supposed to go, and we do things we're not supposed to do, we put ourselves right smack where the enemy can get to us.
That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. And I think remembering, if you do end up in a situation where like this is self-inflicted, you literally have put yourself in a bad situation, the Lord is still faithful to help equip you and get you out if you depend on him.
Right.
And he's still available, or he's still always there to help see you through. Right. He has equipped us. The word has given us scripture over scripture of the Lord being there and what he does and how he equips and how he's there. Mm-hmm. And so just because you find yourself in a situation doesn't mean you have to stay there.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great point too. The Lord equips us to leave these situations and protects us in those if we will return to him, if we will call on him, if we will depend on him. And so, yeah, I think it's great.
Well, the Bible is clear to say, especially when it involves temptation, if that's what's called you in there, which I think that is obviously a character thing we see with Samson.
Right.
He's tempted by women, and, we see that over and over, but the Bible is clear to say that the Lord, if you are tempted, the Lord will provide a way out. Now, in this case, it was with Samson's strength, but right. It is a reminder as application to us that the Lord will provide a way out, and you have to be willing to take it.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a great word. And yeah, that the Lord provides, but we have to look to him and turn away from where we are and look to him.
Yes, and take action, right? Samson had to take action to get out.
Right. That's right.
Well, if we now move into verse 4 and we have Delilah enter the scene, the word says that he loved her. He has feelings for her. This is a different situation.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I think that's important.
It doesn't say that she loves him.
No.
It says he loved her. So
right.
I think it's important to remember the dynamics of the relationship here, as we will see that unfold through this.
Yes. This is the first time we've seen that, right? We have this instance that we just saw in the first 3 verses. We have the first wife, which he saw her and he liked her, when he talked to her. This is the first time it's told us that he's fallen in love with someone. And then it says in verse 4 that she was from the valley of Sorek. And so it's my understanding this is between like the Philistine territory and the Danites, which, we know he was from the tribe of Dan. And so it's kind of in this area between the two, I think. And so it's likely she's Philistine based on the fact that these leaders, the rulers of the Philistines come to her, and she obviously is willing to betray him for money. It's likely, it doesn't really tell us, but it's likely that she was Philistine also. And so I think that's important to realize kind of where her loyalties lie. We don't know exactly, except we know that she can be bought. So because she's willing to betray Samson. And you're right, it doesn't speak of her feelings at all. It only speaks of her willingness to take the money and to turn him in.
Well, and I think if we add on to what you were saying earlier, my Bible says the Philistines came up and told her to seduce him. So I think it's a reminder now, whether they knew these are the same Philistines that knew about his past or knew where his weaknesses lie, but it is a reminder that would have been a weakness for him. It's very possible they would have known that. And it's a reminder that your enemy does know things about you and will use that to try to conquer you. And so it's important to remember that things are not always secret. The enemy is going to know where your weaknesses are. I just thought that was an interesting kind of note here, that was their first punch at him. Go and seduce him and find out what he knows.
Yes. No, I think that's so good, right? Because we don't know what the relationship was up to this point. We know that he loved her, but the very next thing we read is that they went to her and said, hey, see if you can lure him into telling us the secret of his strength. And they're very open with what they want. So how we can overpower him so that we may tie him up and subdue him, and we'll pay you to do this. So you're right. I mean, we don't know what the situation at that point was, except that Samson loved her and then they went to her. And so very likely that her intention was just simply like, oh, they've offered me this money. I'm going to take advantage of this, and I'm going to get him. He likes me, so I'm going to get him to confide in me. Yeah, the enemy has a way of finding the weaknesses and exploiting those weaknesses. We know Samson has the strength to overcome. The Lord has equipped him to overcome this temptation and the scheme of the enemy. We know how that's going to go based on the next few verses that we've read in our lesson. But yeah, I think that's a really great point about the enemy's attacks. He knows where to attack us and where we are weak.
Well, and if we kind of dive into this section as a whole, and then we can pull out the details from it, if you're good with that.
Yeah.
But we're looking at a situation where it's kind of a cycle on repeat. It's, and just he gives a different answer. But at what point, like, this is almost back to the first wife situation. How is he not understanding what's going on? Or maybe he is, and he's playing with her, but at some point, why doesn't he put an end to it? Why does he keep playing into it? Because we're going to see that his ability to not stop it is going to lead to detrimental things for him. And so at what point is his self-control not allowing him to stop it? Why does he keep giving these answers? Because obviously after the first time, he's got to be very aware of what she's after, and that she's does not have his best interest in mind. So when we look at the whole picture, this is kind of what's going on, and then we can pull out the details from it. His response to her, but yet he's supposed to love her. Why doesn't he shut it down? Why does he allow it to continue? It's just a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the fact that he does not tell her, that he's not willing to answer her questions, he obviously doesn't trust her, or he doesn't trust that secret of his to get out. It's the same thing we've seen, right? She just keeps pressing him, and every time she betrays him, and yet he continues to do it. So yeah, is he know he can't trust her and that she might betray him, and so he gives her these false answers? But at the same time, we're going to see that he finally kind of, allows this to be his downfall. And so, yeah, why did he not walk away? Why did he not realize, is this it? And it could be, if we look back at the first 3 verses, maybe that's part of the purpose of those 3 verses, because we see his character here. He's so enamored with her and these things. He likes women, and that is a downfall for him. And perhaps the temptation is keeping him from walking away, even though he knows clearly that he does not want to give her his secret, And so I think probably the first 3 verses give us a clue as to why he does not walk away here.
I think you're right. I think we could dive into a little bit that he is also maybe relying on the fact that he's got the strength. So at what
Yeah.
point do we allow things to continue and go on because I got it, I'll get
Yeah.
out of it, the Lord's with
Yeah.
me, He's given me this, so I'm going to stay here and do these things because, I'm good. I can get out of this
Yeah.
if I need to. The Lord's equipped me, instead of, rising above and doing what He's supposed to be doing.
Right.
So I kind of wonder if there's some of that going on.
Yeah, this playing with fire, walking too close to the edge because you think you won't fall off, or you think you can handle it, you think you can always get out of it. If you've got the strength that he has, there's got to be, or you would think there must be some of that in there, right? That I have the strength. I can always get out of this. And so, yeah, there's this playing with fire element that I think could certainly be part of the equation.
Yeah, I think it has to be because
Mhm.
the first time that the Philistines come out of to ambush him, and he's able to obviously quickly get out of the situation, he has to see the whole picture at that moment, right? So the fact that he allows himself to go through it again, I think you're right, goes back to the first 3 verses. We see his weakness, which is why maybe she was called to seduce him, because they may know this about him, and he allows himself to stay in it, play with fire, because he probably has an understanding that I can get myself out of it. And that's obviously going to not end well for him. But
Right.
it's just a reminder as far as when we look at application for ourselves.
Yeah, I think so too. I think living in this place, God's called him to do something, and God has equipped him. So you have to think now, you have to think, man, he could have been so powerful against the Philistines, and he did strike them some heavy blows, but man, what could he have done if he didn't continually excuse me, get tripped up by his own weaknesses? The Lord knows everything. So I think the Lord used him in spite of those things, and probably knowing those things about him, and was able to use those things for his purposes, even though he knew Samson would do these things, and the Lord chose him anyway. And maybe because of these things of Samson, it allowed Samson to go in and to do these things. I just think, man, what could he have done if his personal weaknesses didn't just keep tripping him up? Because we are called to stand and to walk with the Lord and to be sold out for the Lord, and committed to him as Samson was, set apart. And yet he keeps just playing with fire, walking on the edge, walking into temptation, and eventually that's going to come back for him. And that's a lesson to us.
I think you're right. I know that we're kind of getting to the end of the verses for today, but I do think we should just do a short touch on that women need to remember the influence that they can have over the men in their life, their husbands who should be the leader of them. And we need to just remember that we are their helper, and we are here to aid them and not work against them, and the influence that we can have on them.
Yeah, I think we see that in other places in the Bible too, and just the influence of women over their husbands. I've been studying Genesis, and you see the same thing with Eve influencing her husband because she was tempted by Satan. We have the power to influence them, and that's a thing that we need to be careful with. And if we're in the Word and we're walking with the Lord, then our influence over them, although they are leading us, our influence over them is drastically different than if we're coming at them with our own desires and our own temptations and our own enticements and things that are outside of the Lord. And it's a reminder to us that what we say and what we do influences them. And how do we want to influence them? We want to influence them to walk in the manner that they should be walking, and encourage them in that instead of pulling them from that.
Yes. And that we are all, as Christians, called to be set apart and live holy.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, you have any other thoughts for today? I think this was good. I think it was helpful to dive in and look at the big picture. We didn't dive a lot into the details, but I think that's because they're cyclical, right? It's the overall picture that we're really seeing here.
Yeah, and I think so too. I think I think as we start the next lesson, where we kind of continue this back and forth with Delilah, just to remember what's happened 3 times. There's been 3 attempts already. And he keeps telling her, if you do this, I'll be as weak as any other man. So that right there tells us he's relying on that strength that we've talked about. And she even tells him, tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued. So her intentions are clear. She's got men in hiding, and every time she has men in hiding in the inner chamber, it says, or in the room, and they come after Samson. So I think as we go forward in this next section, just to remember, we've already been through this 3 times. He doesn't tell her the truth. He doesn't trust her. He doesn't want to give out that secret. And then what changes so much in this next section? Just to kind of peek back at what's happened as we go forward and see the change that takes place there.
Yeah, that's great. And, we'll wrap up the Samson series next week and kind of put it all together. There will be a lot to uncover next week as we finish it out.
Yes, lots to unpack next week. And next week in the homework is kind of a double lesson, but I think we're going to cover it all in one setting. But yeah, so there's a lot to unpack in those verses.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us today, and we hope everybody's studying is going well this week, and we will see you next time.
Sounds great. Have a great week.